What's going on, you guys? This is your boy Jeameave back again with Views from the Heart, and today I got a 2013 Infiniti G37 Journey Sedan, courtesy of Carlux. Now, before I did a Infiniti Q50 Sedan, and obviously for those that know, the Q50 up until very recently, especially like with the red sport or red line, whatever Infiniti wants to call it these days, carries over the same exact drivetrain of this engine, sans steering hydraulics, and they moved to a fly-by-wire steering. So doing that, I was very how should I say, disappointed in the way the Q50 drove, and that saddens me a bit because this is my first time driving an Infiniti G37, so I'm very eager to see how this drives, especially considering the fact that it's the same exact VQ37 VHR. VHR meaning this engine, the VQ37, includes variable valve timing, with HR standing for high revolution or high revving, whatever you want to dictate it as. But it's a 3.7 liter V6 pushing 328 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque. So let's go ahead and jump in this bad boy and see what it's all about, because I'm all about driving, so let's go ahead and jump in. Shut up. So what's this like driving a 2013 Infiniti G37 Journey? Well, I can tell you right now, I'm acting just like how Robert does in his own car, because guess what, people? He has the same exact car except in a coupe version. Unfortunately for him though, I actually prefer the looks of the sedan more than the coupe. Oh, you are wild, man. I think personally, I think the sedan looks way better than the coupe. Are you blind? Are you blind? Are you blind? And I'm a coupe guy. Let's just put it that way, you know. But for people who don't know, this is Superman Rob here. The reason why he's known as Superman Rob is because he wears the Carlux. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be able to produce most of these videos. So,
you would have been doing nothing.
Shut up, ho. But anyway, so again, as aforementioned, this is a G37 Journey 2013. It has a curb weight of 3,618 pounds. It uses a VQ37 VHR 3.7 liter V6 pushing 328 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque, with a red line of 7,500. So let's see here. This is supposed to compete with a BMW 3 Series, Mercedes C-Class, Lexus IS, Audi A4. This is the premier entry-level luxury segment, and this was something that I mulled over when I did my Infiniti Q50 review. And for those who may not know, the Q50, although it has the newer body style and newer interior, yada yada, whatever, you know, that's all in viewpoint. That car honestly was extremely disappointing. All it had was the engine, the steering wheel, the steering feel was absolutely awful. It was one of the most vague vehicles I ever drove. I don't understand why anyone that enjoys driving would ever even consider driving a newer Infiniti Q50. We have an emergency vehicle coming up behind us, but that's just the point blank honest truth of this. And honestly, I can see why a lot of people are very discouraged in terms of the direction Infiniti is going, because driving this, now mind you, I'm going to reiterate that this has the same exact engine as the Q50. Same exact engine, 3.7 liter V6. But the main and most important thing is that this car drives and handles exponentially better than that car ever could or even dream of, because it has hydraulic power steering and it actually feels somewhat natural. So let's see. Are you gonna run up? Oh, you ain't catching up to this R speed. I thought it was a 200T anyway. Okay, so you know, it's actually not that bad, but it does lack torque. You know, it only has 269, and it makes most of its power in the higher end. So that means that although it's a nice feeling, linear, naturally aspirated power band, it feels, how should I say, lackluster in the low RPMs. It needs to, you need to wind up the engine a little bit, but once it does get going, it feels clean, it feels nice. And like I said, this does weigh 3,600 pounds, 3,618 pounds to be exact. So it does feel very light, and it feels pretty nimble, and honestly, this is pretty enjoyable to drive. I've always had a very negative aspect or opinion of Infiniti, specifically because of the demographic that tends to drive these cars. I mean, let's be realistic, especially for people that live in the more urbanized cities. You know, look at a G37. There's no in between. It's either a king boy in the car, or you have an old geezer. He's just a
Why you hating, bro?
I'm being a realist. And you know, y'all can shoot me in the comments. So you know, I drive a BMW. Yeah, you can call me whatever you want to call me. But realistically speaking, I mean, we have one of them right here sitting next to me.
What?
No, I'm just
What?
Oh, I'm just playing with you. But overall, that's what tends to happen, especially when I stay on the school for Oxnard. I don't know what it is about Ventura County or Oxnard specifically, but Nissan as a whole has that entire area on lock. There is no other car that you can look within a 5-second interval at any point in time when you're driving that you won't see some derivative of a Nissan or Infiniti. And most of the time it's either going to be a G35, a 350Z, or a G37. And they all have muffler delete, so they're all driving going. If you were going to say BQ37 sounds this, sounds that, and I think it just sounds okay, personally. I'm not the biggest fan of V6s. It doesn't sound bad, but it's not something that is like, oh my god, it sounds so amazing. It sounds good, I'll give it that, but it's not the way some people try and make it up to be. And it can be a very, very loud engine when it obviously has no mufflers. So it's not the worst sounding thing. Obviously it sounds way better than any 4-banger, in my personal opinion, but at the same time, I don't think it sounds as good as the inline 6, or V8, or V10, or V12. Obviously, Robert differs with my opinion. And like I said, obviously what I'm speaking about for the most part when it comes to, these are just my opinions, other than when I'm particularly talking about the car itself. Obviously those are facts, but for the most part the interior in here is actually pretty comfortable. Again, this is a 2013, it does feel pretty modern. I feel like there's a little bit too much use of soft touch plastics in here compared to its contemporary rivals. But overall, that's not the point of Infiniti. I feel like, and what I tried to hit on with Infiniti was, Infiniti offers good horsepower at a cheaper price point with an adequate interior to go along with it. Sporty, good horsepower, at least with this car. And I feel like that's very necessary to have, because right off the bat, I'll tell you, this engine in and of itself is far more reliable than my BMW. That's just the way it is. It's a naturally aspirated engine. There's not many things to worry about. There's no turbo leaks in terms of oil or coolant line leaks or anything like that. It's a naturally aspirated engine, much easier upkeep, much cheaper to upkeep, so on and so forth. So with that being said, this car snuggles perfectly in with someone that is looking for a car that, honestly, it handles pretty well. I'm actually very astonished as the way it handles. I actually wouldn't mind driving this as a daily driver, because it actually is giving me enough transient feedback that I can appreciate it and not to feel like it's boring to drive. It's actually pretty fun, to be honest. And me saying that in and of itself is a lot, because again, I've been a hardcore Infiniti critic time and time again. But I will admit, like I said, I try and be as honest and as unbiased and as objective as possible when it comes to me reviewing any vehicles that I drive. It's actually a comfortable, fun, sporty driving car. And like I said, the naturally aspirated power band with the high revving engine does make for a lot of fun. But as I've mentioned, the power is made at 7,000 RPMs. So if you're not in the correct gear, or if you're not winding the engine out, you do kind of have to work for that power. But I feel like it's at the perfect spot where, I think I kind of touched on it with Rob before, saying sometimes it's better to drive a slower car fast than trying to drive a fast car fast. Now hear me out, because you were like, well,
you told me that.
Like, hear me out. This car has 328 horsepower. But to get to that 328 horsepower, you have to wind the engine out, experience it, enjoy the sound of the engine, all of those organic intangibles that you wouldn't really experience in a car that is extremely fast, whether it's naturally aspirated or not. Because realistically speaking, especially living in LA, the moment you put your foot down in 2 seconds, you're in the back, you're going to be in the rear end of another car. So at least if you're a little bit on the slower end, you can experience a little bit more of it, kind of enjoy that you feel like you work in the car, and just overall feel a little bit more connection with it, as opposed to this car was just extremely fast. Now don't get me wrong, it's not slow by any means, but at the same time, it's not blistering fast. It's adequate speed, and I feel like this is something that most people would be more than comfortable and happy with driving and experiencing, because for the average consumer, you don't need more than this. like realistically speaking, this is fast enough to do any overtake, beat any Prius on the road, and so on and so forth. So you're comfortable here with the power band, and it's workable, it's usable, it's manageable, and it's not a hard car to drive. It's very easy to just jump in. Like I said, that's also lend credence to the fact that it is a linear, naturally aspirated power band. So, which is why you see a lot of
I saw 3 already.
You see a lot of boys doing a lot of dumb doing burnouts and
I'm excluded from that.
So you say.
Gotta be far smoking.
But it's very easy to and like I said, again, it's obviously a rear-wheel drive. This is not a 4-wheel drive car, or excuse me, all-wheel drive. So it's very clean, and like I said, its power it's appreciative, especially for me driving a turbo car all the time. It's nice to feel power continually and progressively increase in power band, as opposed to, depending on what turbo car you have, especially if the turbo is small, feels like it falls off a cliff at like 5,000 RPMs, while this car continues to make power and makes peak power all the way to 7,000. So that makes for a far more gratifying experience. You get to hear the engine work, rev, and you feel the power all throughout. And it sucks because, like I said, we are in Inglewood, but overall this is a very comfortable car, and that's actually surprising to me because it feels nimble, but yet I'm not being jerked around, hitting potholes. There's a lot of imperfections in these roads in Inglewood, California, but obviously South Central, West LA, West Side, Best Side. The roads are, to be honest, it really is. The roads are awful down here, and
yeah,
I mean, realistically speaking, are you not riding relatively comfortable despite the nuclear warhead?
Well, I do have a lip on my car, so honestly.
I mean, yeah, you're a little bit lower and things like that, but I mean, I'm talking about in this specific car though. Like, it doesn't ride bad.
I mean, some bumps. I mean, especially in my car, yeah, you can actually get it. It's not that terrible, but it's not that great. It's like, it's okay. Yeah, I guess.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nah, it's all good. Just that somebody was out, one of my coworkers was check out this car.
This car? This car specifically?
Yeah.
Alright, well then, point into this video then. You can be like, I did not abuse it. I'm just experiencing it. You feel
yeah, you kind of have to take the long way, man. They're waiting.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, they're there right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
oh.
Sorry for the intermission.
Oh, my fault then, you know, just ruin my video, you know, no big deal.
No, I'm not gonna ruin your video, man. You're doing a good job so far, bro.
Well, I appreciate you then, you know, we just made that quick UE, you know. But like I said, this is a G37, you know. I got my guy Rob out here with me, you know, be leaving me hanging. What you do?
You know, you the king of fuckboys and shit or whatever you said.
Hey, I didn't say that. You just kind of confirmed it.
Nah, you said it. And then we're just running.
I said I was kidding immediately after.
You were, man.
Don't look at him. He's butthurt, guys. I heard his feelings.
I'm butthurt. Butthurt.
But like I said, this is literally my first time driving an Infiniti G37, and to be honest, I like it. I really do. Would I own this car?
You said yes.
Would I own this car? The magic question. And the magical answer is yes. I actually would own this car. But I would own it with the understanding that this is as fast as it's going to be, and it's not going to be any faster than that. So, but it's adequate enough as a daily driver. This is not something you're gonna take into canyons and carve up the roads and things like that. But it's good enough and it's fun enough as a daily driver. And it's giving me enough feedback through the steering wheel to understand that Infiniti made a critical error when they made the Q50 have fly-by-wire steering. That is the absolute dumbest decision I think they could possibly have done. Because what I touched on in my Q50 review is I felt like Infiniti was in a good segment, at a good spot within this segment to offer something that has decent horsepower, decent sportiness at a much cheaper price point with much better reliability than its German rivals. And with the Q50, they failed in everything but reliability because it's the same engine. But it wasn't sporty at all. It was just now that I'm remembering exactly how that car drove, it was just very, very disappointing. And honestly, if Infiniti would have kept the same formula, I would have looked at Infiniti in a much better light in terms of at least where they're going now. I mean, and some people can say that about BMW too, but at the very least, BMW's newer BMWs, even with electronic power steering, still feels far better than that Q50 ever could even dream of, because honestly, that Q50 steering was one of the worst steerings I've ever felt. It was so vague, so unenthusiastic, and to know that they made this and went to that, I don't know if you could shoot yourself in the foot and any more than that. That's my honest opinion. Like, I don't know how you go from that, but go from this to that and still be the same brand. Like, if these two cars, even though they have the same engine, do not feel comparable in any way, shape, or form.
Because they need to do a redesign. They need to.
I mean, there's a difference between doing a redesign and just like.
And like completely.
These two cars, again, I keep on reading, they have the same VQ37 VHR.
I don't know.
And they drive completely different. If you were to put them side by side, took off the badge, took off everything, obviously, besides the obvious redesign, you would never know that these two cars had the same exact engine. I mean, other than the fact that you would hear it, obviously.
They told me they were to offer me a new one. The new Q50 or this one. I'm gonna get this one.
And these cars are so cheap now. These cars are so cheap and affordable and reliable that
that's why I saw 3 of them outside right now. Now I have to go really trade in my car. Like, what's, man?
But that also serves a good purpose too, because like I said, remember, this car offers good horsepower at a cheaper price point with more reliability than its German contemporaries. That was a sweet spot for Infiniti, and it's cheaper than its Lexus contemporaries also, with more horsepower. Usually the Lexus IS200T or IS300, whatever they want to call it now, is just about as expensive as this, as a fully optioned up G37 or now Q50. Now I would recommend getting a Lexus IS300 F Sport over the Q50 every day of the week, twice on Sunday. So with that said, would I own an Infiniti G37? Yes, absolutely. Honestly, this car surprised me in multiple ways, and it's a far cry, and it's also disheartening to know that Infiniti went from this to the Q50. Horrible decision in my personal opinion, because I think they had a sweet spot with this car. All they need to do is modernize a little bit more, maybe obviously update the body style and things of that nature. But this was the sweet spot, and they killed it. I don't know where Infiniti's gonna go from here. Maybe they might go back. Some people could say the same thing about BMW, but at least BMW is trying to kind of bring back its core customers with better steering and better steering implementation and steering racks of that nature. But overall, the Infiniti offers very good handling for what it is. It offers a very pleasurable power band, and it offers adequate horsepower to make an everyday driving vehicle fun, along with obviously its reliability. Robert here can attest to that. He's had little to no issues with his G37. He's owned it for what, nearly 3 years now? Yeah. Almost 3 years, little to no issues. I wish I could say the same about my BMW, but hey, sometimes you gotta pay to play, and sometimes you gotta spend your money smart. If you want a fun car with decent horsepower and reliability, go with the G37. It's fun, and I'd recommend it. So with that said, it's your boy Jeameave, and I got Superman Ross in the shotgun. This vehicle is available right here at Carlux. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out.